On the day the enemy princess entered the palace, I bestowed upon her a bowl of 5 poisoned soup. His Majesty flew into a rage, publicly slapped me across the face, seized my imperial seal, and declared he would dethrone the empress. But this was precisely what I desired. Having lived this life twice, who cares about being empress? My heart yearns for that dragon throne. Xiao Yu returned from his southern campaign, bringing back the princess of the Nanzhao kingdom. He destroyed her nation, slaughtered her kin, yet loved her to the bone. Among the 3,000 beauties in the harem, he favored only her. Yet Princess Yunzhu, filled with hatred, remained by her enemy's side only to be consumed by his boundless affection. Arrogant and tyrannical, she orchestrated the death of Consort Yin, born of a military family, and exterminated the entire Yin clan. For the Yin family's army had led the campaign against Nanzhao, she sought vengeance. She poisoned pregnant consorts and murdered infant princes, fueled by her loathing for the great Xia imperial house. Later, when she miscarried, all evidence pointed to me. Alone with me, she hissed, when His Majesty marched south. Why didn't your Wang family, as censors, stop him? You all deserve to die. Her stunning face twisted with cruelty as she used the power her enemies had granted her to vent her hatred upon innocent women of the harem. That day, Xiao Yu ordered my dethronement, executed my father and brothers, and exiled the entire Wang clan. Half a month later, he overruled all objections to make Yunzhu empress. Years of bloodshed in the court bred discontent among the ministers and unrest across the land. As rebel armies besieged the capital, he professed his love with tender devotion. I know Consort Yin did not poison you. I know you were never pregnant. I know you orchestrated the deaths of Lady Lin, Lady Han, and the 2 young princes. I know everything. Yet I care not. As long as my Yun is happy. What does it matter if I sacrifice the entire realm? He knew every trick she played, tolerating all her whims. He indulged her slaughter of consorts and framing of loyal ministers, all to win a single smile from his beloved. Such profound devotion finally moved Princess Yunzhu to tears. They embraced amidst mountains of corpses and seas of blood. In the tale's end, Xiao Yu quelled the war, and Yunzhu finally abandoned vengeance for love, staying by his side forever. As for me, starved and frozen, I perished in the cold palace. I died in bitter resentment. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself back on the day Yunzhu entered the palace. Xiao Yu had waited all day in the Changel Hall. Only at dusk did he come to the Jiaofeng Hall. Rejected by Yunzhu, he sought solace in my palace. It was always like this in my past life. Even gathering the world's rarest treasures could not win a single smile from the fair one. Yet the emperor, supreme ruler of the realm, suffered repeated rebuffs at her hands. He lavished all his tenderness and forbearance upon her, only to vent his pent-up fury upon the harem. He would casually order palace maids beaten to death or consorts deposed, plunging the entire palace into a reign of terror. Just as now, his face was grim, exhaustion and malevolence radiating from him as he propped his head on his hand and sighed before a table laden with delicacies. After 7 years of marriage, I knew him all too well. When troubled, he never spoke first, waiting only for me to ease his worries. Your Majesty troubled by Princess Yunzhu's affairs? As he wished. I spoke first. His eyes held only deep weariness as he frowned and said, Empress, Yun is young, with a pure heart and a fiery spirit. This palace is full of deceit and intrigue. I fear she might suffer injustice. As the mistress of the harem, I must rely on you to care for her more closely from now on. I do not wish for anything to happen to her within these walls. The implication was clear. Any misfortune that befell Yunzhu in the harem henceforth would be my responsibility. Your Majesty may rest assured. I shall not fail in this duty. Beneath the glow of 9-branched lamps, I lifted my brows and smiled, my expression obedient and gentle. He nodded with satisfaction. Thank you, Empress. In this world, you truly understand me best. I slowly poured myself a cup of aged Luzhou liquor. The fiery spirit burned my throat. Yet a cold smile played in my heart. Of course I understand. After several cups, his palm covered mine. Tonight, I shall go nowhere. I remain here with you. No sooner had the words left his lips than an attendant from the Palace of Everlasting Joy arrived with news. Princess Yunshu was refusing food. He set down his chopsticks and rushed out immediately. Stepping outside the hall, I gazed up at the clear night sky. A sea of stars spread across the heavens. Unnoticed in this moment, among the 5 stars of the northern constellation, the purple imperial star's brilliance gradually dimmed. I raised my cup in toast to the heavens. This imperial throne should rightfully belong to the most capable. Before news of His Majesty bringing back the Princess of Nanzhao spread throughout the harem, I took 2 actions. Citing her late arrival for the morning audience, I confined consort Yinli to her quarters. Then, I sent Princess Yunshu a bowl of 5 poisoned soup. No stir came from the Changle Hall, but Yinli arrived at my door within moments. Your Majesty's new favorite has stirred resentment in the Empress, who now takes her anger out on her concubines, she declared. Dressed in scarlet robes, a peony hairpin adorning her hair, she radiated an unmistakable air of nobility, vivid and unapologetic. Seeing her again after 2 lifetimes, I stared blankly at the person I once detested most, my eyes unexpectedly stinging with tears. We were mortal enemies who fought since childhood, competing over everything from sugar figurines and pastries to dresses and hairpins. After entering the palace, she felt overshadowed by me and never conceded defeat. Yet, during the autumn hunt when I was attacked, Xiaoyu only focused on shielding Yunshu and leaving me behind in the mountains. It was she who rode in on horseback, spear in hand, snatching my life from the tiger's jaws. A daughter of a military family, no matter how willful and capricious, possesses an upright and righteous heart. I absolutely cannot let her repeat that mistake. In my past life, Yunshu was poisoned after drinking sweet soup from Yinli Palace. Xiaoyu ordered a thorough search of the Chenghua Hall, unexpectedly uncovering evidence of the Yin family's collusion with the enemy. Looking back now, it was all part of Yunshu's scheme. If that is the case, then this poison shall be mine to administer. Seeing my prolonged silence, Yinli grew impatient. Your Majesty, do you admit you are in the wrong? I composed myself, lifting the corners of my lips as I had when we bickered before. Raising an eyebrow at her, attendants. Consort Yin has insulted the Empress and behaved improperly before the palace. Add 3 months to her confinement, she shall be confined for half a year. She was skilled in martial arts, and ordinary palace maids couldn't restrain her. Therefore, I summoned a full 10 eunuchs. She stomped her foot in fury. Wang Ning, you're unreasonable, bullying me with your power. Thus, the eunuchs were beaten until their faces were black and blue, but they finally managed to carry the consort Yin out together. By the hour of news finally arrived from the Changle Palace. Princess Yunshu had been poisoned. The grand hall was filled with a sea of kneeling physicians and palace attendants. Useless fools! If you cannot save Yun, I shall have you all buried alive with her, he roared, standing dazed and distraught before Yunshu's bed. Ting Lan, the maid who had followed from Nanzhao, knelt abruptly. Princess Yunshu consumed nothing tonight. She only drank the soup sent by Her Majesty the Empress before this happened. Xiaoyu's face turned ashen. His icy gaze swept toward me. What kind of soup was it? I bowed slightly, responding calmly, it was the 5 poison soup. Smack! A slap landed on my face. The blow sent dizziness reeling through me, my legs buckling as I teetered toward the candlestick. At the critical moment, a pair of strong hands seized me, yanking me back just in time to steady myself. Turning, I saw Yinli. Poisonous bitch! Xiaoyu's eyes blazed crimson. his gaze so icy it could kill instantly. The Empress has committed an offense. Effective immediately. Her imperial seal is revoked. And she is confined to the cold palace. Your Majesty. The situation remains unclear. How can you so hastily condemn the Empress? Even if she did poison someone, the imperial physicians should examine the evidence first. Ainley spoke swiftly, her voice tinged with indignation. Yet Xiao Yu was deaf to reason at that moment. You defend this poisonous woman so fiercely, do you wish to join her in the cold palace? Get out of my sight. Ainley refused to relent. About to speak further, when I seized her sleeve with all my strength. I entered the cold palace as I wished. The dilapidated room was thick with cobwebs, sticky with mosquitoes and moths. Stripping off the Empress's robes brought a wave of relief. Weren't you confined? Why did you go to Changle Hall? I lit a candle, and the dust on the table sent a wave of coughing fits my way. You still want to confine me? Why don't you worry about yourself first? Your Majesty the Empress. Ainley rolled her eyes, searching for a stool to sit on. As she brushed it, her hand was covered in dust. Hey! You didn't poison the soup you sent, did you? I shook my head. She sat down, propping her chin on her hand. When I accompanied my father on campaigns, I saw common folk brew a concoction called 5-venom soup, made from toads, centipedes, scorpions, geckos, and white flower snakes. It's actually a potent tonic for blood and qi. Only that fool of an emperor would punish you based on the name alone. But why didn't you explain? I lit the stove to boil tea. Within 3 days, the entire capital will know His Majesty slapped the Empress for a foreign princess. All stemming from a misunderstanding born of his ignorance. To depose the Empress so rashly will stir unrest among the imperial clan and throughout the court and the realm. This is my first step. But Yunshu really was poisoned? She questioned doubtfully. The water began to boil. I scooped a small amount of Maojian tea leaves into the pot with a spoon. Instantly, the room filled with the fragrance of tea. This will require Consort Yin to investigate. If I'm not mistaken, the poison was likely administered by her own hand, a herbal toxin from Nanzhao. But the dosage was light. It will cause illness for 10 days to a fortnight. Not death. Therefore, it falls to Consort Yin to unveil the truth before the entire imperial court. I chuckled softly, winking at her. She sprang to her feet, ready to storm out. Why should I? What do I owe you? A breeze stirred through the courtyard, lifting the aged curtains before letting them fall again. Shadows danced in the dimly lit room. Shaoli, do you believe in past lives and reincarnation? Through the dim, flickering light, I fixed my gaze upon her, calling her by a name untouched for years. 3 days later, His Majesty accidentally drank poisoned tea in the Changle Hall, suffering symptoms identical to Princess Yunju's. After repeated examinations, the imperial physicians finally identified it as the poison of the southern Zhao herb. Meanwhile, Ainley was cracking melon seeds in the cold palace. Didn't he love her to death? Wishing he could take her punishment? So I gave him a dose of Yunju's poison too. I laughed until I trembled like a flower branch. Truly, the young tyrant of the Yin family, her moves were always extraordinary. Soon after, I was released from the cold palace. After Xiao Yu recovered, he bestowed upon me many gold and silk treasures. It was my mistake. And I wronged the Empress. I remained as humble and docile as ever, as long as your Majesty is well. This servant feels no wrong. Half a month apart had left him visibly haggard. Beyond the poison's effects, his recent days in court must have been grueling. The Yin Zhao campaign was the Yin family's foremost achievement. He had intended to elevate old General Yin to Duke of the State, granting him the title of Grand Guardian of the Palace, a nominal promotion concealing a demotion, seizing the opportunity to strip him of military authority. Yet the old General Yin preempted him, submitting a petition to retire on grounds of advanced age. Simultaneously, the young General Yi requested to leave the capital, leading troops to garrison Yunzhou, beset by years of border disturbances. With such unparalleled military achievements and unwavering loyalty, challenging them was impossible. Xiao Yu could only swallow his frustration. As long as young General Yin stationed troops in the northern frontier, Yinli would remain safe within the palace. And all of this was my doing. For in my previous life, Xiao Yu had indeed succeeded in stripping the Yin family of their military power. Consequently, the Yin clan later became as helpless as meat on a chopping block, subject to his whims. An entire family of loyal martyrs met a fate of dismemberment. Thus, that night in the cold palace, I called Yinli to stay. The notion of rebirth was utterly absurd. Yet she believed me. Who could have imagined that after 20 years of bitter rivalry, my sworn enemy would become my ally on the very night I hit rock bottom? After this turn of events, Xiao Yu had been brooding for days, frowning and sighing. Yet what I intended to do had only just begun. At the hour of Qin in the Jiaofeng Palace, the consorts were already waiting to pay their respects. I noticed the youngest, Consort Lin, secretly tucking a pastry into her sleeve. Her roommate, Consort Xin, nudged her gently with her elbow. I told you to rise early so we could have breakfast. You were too lazy to get up. Consort Lin pouted, knowing she was in the wrong, and lowered her head. Seeing this ordinary scene again after a lifetime, I felt a pang of melancholy, my nose stinging slightly. They were all still here. How wonderful. No need for formality. Since you're hungry, eat your fill. From now on, if you rise too late for breakfast, come to the Jiaofeng Hall to eat. With a smile in my eyes, I nodded for the palace attendants to bring up another tray of orange-red cakes and lotus seed soup. Lin Meirin looked up in delight, revealing her pearly white front teeth. Thank you for your kindness. Your Highness. Her large, round eyes and dimpled cheeks made her utterly charming when she smiled. This childlike innocence and spontaneity lightened the atmosphere in the grand hall. And everyone smiled, covering their faces. Your Highness, do not indulge her too much, or she will stay up late again and be lazy in the morning. Xin shot her a stern look, like an elder sister scolding a mischievous younger sister. Xin came from a scholarly family, well-versed in literature and etiquette. Lin Meirin, however, was the only daughter of a southern brewing family. Though her family background was humble, she was the apple of her family's eye, spoiled since childhood and utterly unwilling to study. Yet these two utterly different girls lived together as if they were blood sisters. Perhaps it was because the palace walls were too high, blocking the view of the capital's vastness and splendor. Only by supporting each other did these girls of similar age bring some vitality to these seemingly endless years. As the others dispersed, Lady Lin quietly lingered behind, producing a jar of wine as if by magic. Your Highness, this is wine I secretly brewed using my father's recipe. It's called Forget Sorrow. Whenever I miss home, drinking a jar makes all troubles vanish. So I bring it to you. Her eyes shone brightly as she spoke with earnest sincerity. I suddenly felt both amused and exasperated. She was trying to comfort me over my unjust confinement in the cold palace. A young girl like her might not understand the ways of the world, knowing only to offer pure sincerity to those who treated her with genuine kindness. I laughed heartily. I too once loved wine dearly. For this, I truly thank you, little sister. Only after seeing me accept the gift did she depart, her face beaming with joy. Now my desk was laden with gifts: Xingu's handwritten copy of the Cicada Ode, Consort Han's specially blended perfume, and Lady Lin's wine. None of them mentioned my humiliation, yet each offered small gestures of kindness with careful sincerity. Yet to Xiao Yu, these very women were scheming, vulgar courtesans, ugly, jealous, venomous women. He had chosen them for the palace, tearing families apart, Yet he could watch them with indifference as they withered under Yunju's hand, all to satisfy his unrestrained favoritism. Given a second chance, surely everything could be changed, right? News that Empress Xiaoyu nearly deposed the empress over the southern Zhao princess spread throughout the court and the realm. During the morning audience, ministers petitioned that Yunju was a demonic harbinger of national ruin, imploring His Majesty to execute her. Meanwhile, in the inner palace, I knelt before the Empress Dowager's bed to receive her reprimand. The Emperor's actions may be absurd, but ultimately, it is your failure as Empress that bears responsibility. That he favors a foreign woman is one thing, your lack of counsel is forgivable. But not a single lady in the 3 palaces and 6 courts could capture his heart. How have you managed the harem? In this old woman's view, it is time to select new consorts for the Emperor. Only fresh faces within these walls can divert that demoness favor. I listened in silence for a long while, recalling how in my past life, she always ordered me to admonish the Emperor and rebuke Yunju, yet never once stepped forward herself, fearful of losing her beloved son's affection. This mother and son truly are alike. Yet there are already enough wretched souls trapped within these palace walls. Why imprison more innocent women in this cage? I bowed my head, humbly prostrating myself. Your Majesty's counsel is wise. However, with wars raging year after year and the frontiers still unsettled, selecting new consorts to expand the harem at this time may provide ammunition for criticism, further fueling discontent throughout the court and the realm. Your humble son has a plan to ease your Majesty's concerns, but it requires an imperial decree. Upon leaving Shangyun Palace, I did not return to my quarters but proceeded directly to Xianjing Hall. Given Xiaoyu's temperament, the more pressure comes from both the court and the harem, the more he will believe his bond with Yunju is stronger than gold, a love the vulgar masses cannot comprehend. Attempting to separate lovers only backfires. As the ancients said, blocking is worse than guiding. Upon entering the hall, Xiaoyu stood with his sword raised before an elderly minister, his temples streaked with gray. This was the current chancellor of the Secretariat, and also the grandfather of Consort Han. Your Majesty, please reconsider. I stepped before the old man, grasping the sword's blade with my hand. Blood dripped onto the stone steps. Xiaoyu's eyes brimmed with fury. This is the imperial court's inner sanctum. When did a mere woman of the harem earn the right to enter? I present the Empress Dowager's imperial decree. I enter by command. If this servant has overstepped her bounds, your Majesty may punish me. I shall bear it without complaint. But a trusted minister must not be slain. Killing one man is easy, pacifying the hearts of the people is hard. I implore your Majesty to sheath your sword. I have my own means to protect the one dearest to your heart. His gaze flickered with alarm and doubt. But slowly, he drew his sword back into its scabbard. As I departed, I glanced back at the court filled with loyal ministers who had died in their duty, and at the dragon throne. Today, in the grand hall, I saved the venerable elder minister. From this day forward, what I shall gain will not merely be the title of a virtuous empress. Rather, it shall be loyalty, valor, benevolence, and righteousness, qualities that do not fall short of any man. My departure from this place draws ever nearer. That very noon, I dispatched my personal maid to leave the palace and deliver a message to my maternal home. I requested my father and brothers to strongly advocate tomorrow during court for the benefits of retaining Princess Yunju. Bringing a foreign princess into the harem would demonstrate our dynasty's magnanimity while soothing the hearts of the remnant people of Nanzhao. As for this empress and the royal family behind me, we possess the grace and dignity to overlook trivial matters for the sake of His Majesty. The next day, after court, Xiaoyu came to my Jiaofeng palace in high spirits. Truly, the empress is understanding. She instructed the imperial father to resolve this difficult matter for me. I shall reward him handsomely. I bowed in trepidation. My father is already a duke of the first rank. To grant him further honors would be impossible to justify before the court. As for Lord Han, the Chancellor of the Secretariat, who was startled in the palace hall, to demonstrate your Majesty's magnanimity, he must be properly consoled. These words were flawlessly crafted. Xiao Yu gazed at me for a long moment, then suddenly burst into laughter. The Empress is indeed virtuous. Very well. I hear Lord Han has a grandson skilled in martial arts. Grant him a position in the capital's city defense garrison. Xiao Yu was harsh and ungrateful, with a naturally suspicious nature. All these years, my father held only a title, no real power. He would never grant genuine authority over this matter. If I sought an official post now, it would only arouse his suspicion. But he did not know that Consort Han and the Han family had become my other allies. Xiao Yu's deep affection, defying public condemnation to stand against the ministers, went entirely unappreciated by Yunju. Rejected by her, he would sulkily seek out other consorts' chambers to provoke her jealousy. At this time in my previous life, he had showered exclusive favor upon Consort Xin for an entire month. Later, Consort Xin conceived and bore the palace's first imperial prince. Yet on the third day after the infant's birth, Yunju appeared in the bright moon hall, snatched him from his cradle, and hurled him to his death. Afterward, she hid in Xiao Yu's embrace. Sobbing as her limp fists pounded his chest, I thought I didn't care. But when I saw you with another woman, I couldn't control my jealousy. I couldn't bear to watch you have children with someone else. Xiao Yu, I hate you so much. And I hate myself even more. Xiao Yu embraced her joyfully, soothing her with gentle words. Ayun, I knew you cared for me. Rest assured. From now on, I will love only you and have children only with you. That night, as storms raged and lightning flashed, within the warm chamber bathed in brilliant light, they were deeply entwined, inseparable. Meanwhile, Consort Xin wept heart-wrenchingly over the loss of her infant son. The young prince's death was ultimately ruled an accident. Xiao Yu had the wet nurse executed for negligence, and the matter was settled. That very night, Consort Xin took a dagger to Yunju's chambers. Born into a distinguished scholarly family, she was well-read, gentle, and courteous, yet also the most unyieldingly upright. She denounced Xiao Yu as a tyrant, railed against Yunju for betraying her honor by submitting to an enemy, and though she spoke of vengeance, she dared only strike at the weak. Xiao Yu stepped before Yunju, showing no remorse. I have wronged you. Not Ayun. This child was a mistake born of my quarrel with Ayun. I will compensate you by elevating you to consort. Cease this commotion. In the end, Consort Xin lay pierced by multiple blades as her body was carried out. Rainwater washed the blood from the stone steps outside Changle Hall, just as it would wash away every concubine who later perished by Yunju's hand, cleansed in an instant, as if they had never existed, leaving no trace. Every reunion and separation between them came at the cost of another's life. But none of this would happen again in this lifetime. For Xiao Yu would have no more children in this life. The autumn hunt was approaching, and the assassins from Nanzhao would arrive as scheduled. In the previous life, they had come to carry out the assassination under Yunju's orders. Yet at the last moment, she changed her mind, aiding Xiao Yu's escape and directing the assassins toward the camp. The price was the slaughter of all the imperial women left behind in the camp, while the majority of the assassins perished under the blades of the imperial guard when they arrived. Back then, Xiao Yu left me behind in the mountains. I watched them ride away together, saw her eyes brimming with tears, and felt moved by my own compassion, so even at the very end, I couldn't bear to see him die. The corpses littering the ground, hundreds of lives, including those loyal assassins, were merely tools to prove her resolve. Yunju, my dear Yunju, since you relish assassination, I shall lend you a hand. On the day of the hunt, I used the summer heat as an excuse to stay off the field. After Ainli mocked me thoroughly, she turned, mounted her horse, and declared she would claim first place today. Your servant has heard that the subjects of Nanzhao, regardless of age or gender, excel in both riding and archery. Might your majesty permit me to compete with Consort Yun? She wore a crimson riding outfit, radiating a heroic spirit reminiscent of her days galloping across battlefields alongside her father. Xiao Yu was in a good mood today, though Yunzhu still wore a cold expression. She offered no objection and mounted her horse as well. The three departed with the Imperial Guard. My men, positioned for the operation, were ready to act. At the first quarter past noon, a signal flare shot into the sky, Yunzhu's signal. Moments later, hundreds of black-clad assassins burst from the dense forest. Their gleaming blades caught the sunlight, blindingly bright. But this time, I was prepared. Besides the Imperial Guard, soldiers from the City Defense Corps were stationed on the mountainside. And leading the troops today was none other than the young master of the Han family, the chief secretary. I had sent word early that morning, ordering him to lead his men up the mountain. After a fierce battle, half of the assassins were cut down. Dozens escaped wounded, and at my instruction, Captain Han deliberately spared some lives. Escort them back to the capital for now and hand them over to the Supreme Court. Remember to pull out their teeth to prevent poison from being hidden in them. I commanded. Yes. The handsome young Master Han knelt on one knee, his swollen eye fixed on the beauty Lin behind me. During the earlier battle, he had appeared like a divine soldier, rescuing the drunken Lady Lin who was dreaming of Zhou Gong. When she sobered up somewhat, she mistakenly took him for a bandit and punched him squarely in his handsome face. I chuckled inwardly, serves him right. Beneath the tree shade, the chessboard was missing its final piece. The net was closing. By evening, Xiao Yu finally returned. As expected, he was carried back. Multiple knife wounds gash his body. Injuries severe. Ainli was also wounded. Don't worry. I won't die, she said, her lips pale from blood loss, yet still trying to put on a brave front. How could I wash my hands of this without getting hurt? True enough, if she emerged unscathed, it would inevitably arouse suspicion. But the price paid was steep. Her pretty face was laced with scratches from branches. Though the wounds were shallow and wouldn't scar, the sight was comical. She looked like a spotted cat. I held her hand, my heart heavy with mixed emotions, unsure how to speak. What are you staring at? Hurry up and get me something to eat. I'm starving. Remember this, you owe me a huge favor. You'll have to listen to me from now on. She chattered on. Shut up. I had medicinal food brought to feed her, then treated her wounds with medicinal wine. The pain made her hiss sharply, sucking in cold air. Meanwhile, inside Xiao Yu's main tent, the imperial physicians who had accompanied him crowded around, each with cold sweat beading on their foreheads, trembling uncontrollably. More terrifying than broken limbs was the truth they dared not voice. His Majesty had suffered vital injuries, likely rendering him incapable of fathering children henceforth. After returning to the palace, Xiao Yu lay unconscious for a full fortnight. Upon awakening, his first words were about Yunzhu's whereabouts. Struggling to rise and search for her, Consort Yun conspired with remnants of the southern Zhao to assassinate your Majesty. She has been confined to the inner palace awaiting punishment, the eunuch reported in a trembling voice. Nonsense! He roared, smashing a cup and pushing away the eunuchs supporting him as he stormed toward the exit. It's true, Your Majesty. The assassin has confessed. He raged inside for a long while, refusing to calm down. The chief physician entered to re-examine him and, with great difficulty, delivered the devastating news that he would never have children. Enraged, he immediately ordered the physician's head to be cut off. How dare you curse me? You must be tired of living. just as he was about to unleash a bloodbath. I invited the Empress Dowager to come in. She entered with measured steps. "What are you doing, my son? Even if you slaughtered the entire Imperial Medical Bureau, what good would it do?" Having weathered far greater storms, the Empress Dowager remained remarkably composed compared to Xiaoyu's fury and disarray. "You are still young. This injury may not be beyond cure. In my humble opinion, there are many skilled practitioners among the common folk. Why not send envoys to secretly seek out masters? There might still be a way." Her words were earnest, radiating the warmth of a loving mother. She also admonished me, this matter must never be disclosed. I obediently agreed. But oh, that day on Lanhong Mountain, when the Imperial Guards carried him back, countless eyes among the ministers and Imperial clans saw that arrow strike his vital spot. The news that needed spreading had already spread. Besides, when faced with overwhelming power, even a mother and son must make choices. The Empress Dowager has more than one son. Compared to Xiaoyu, she favors her youngest, Prince Yong. If my guess is correct, the messenger bearing the order to Yongzhou will leave the capital tonight. And by the hour of the water clock, the secret guards I dispatched should have succeeded. The next day, the Empress Dowager's envoy was found dead 30 li outside the capital. The secret letter he carried was discovered by the city guard and presented before the throne. The rift between mother and son began at that very moment. After a fierce argument, the Empress Dowager was confined to the Buddhist hall. Xiaoyu, struck by successive blows, was overcome with anguish. He sat listless, gaunt and haggard. Why? Why did Ayun betray me? And now mother betrays me too? Then, covering his face, he wept bitterly, his tears unbecoming. The arrow that severed his line bore Nanchao's signature multicolored mountain finch feathers. It was the very arrow that had sealed his bond with Princess Yunshu upon their first meeting. However unwilling he was to believe it, the undeniable truth stood before him. You see, he could feign ignorance when she killed his concubines or harmed his children. But when the blade turned against him, he could not remain indifferent. Xiaoyu, since you love her so deeply, I shall grant your wish, let her sever your line forever. Amid his sobs, he suddenly lifted his head, his hands clenching mine with fierce intensity. Ning, you would never betray me, would you? I kept my gaze lowered, my smile faint. Of course not. Your servant would never betray your majesty. How could there be betrayal when there was never any loyalty to begin with? That night, he slept in my arms, plagued by nightmares. This continued for months afterward. He lost all interest in reviewing memorials, always complaining of headaches. Thus, 4 months on end, I read the memorials aloud to him, until eventually, I was the one reviewing them. Months passed. Though Xiaoyu never punished Yunzhu, he never saw her again either. Yunzhu, however, clearly couldn't sit still, for she had never truly shunned him like a venomous snake. If his heart truly grew cold, how could this cruel love story continue? She fleeing, he pursuing, he showering her with favor. She yearning for her homeland yet unable to control her love for him. In those brief months, she had staged every possible ploy: starvation, drowning, hanging, poisoning, yet Xiaoyu remained utterly unmoved. Until that night of torrential rain, when Yunzhu fled the inner palace. Barefoot, hair disheveled, she knelt outside the Jiaofeng hall, sobbing and pleading to see His Majesty. Is His Majesty going out? Amid the torrential downpour, Yunzhu's voice grew fainter and fainter, eventually drowned out by the endless darkness of the night. Inside the hall, I burned incense to clear my mind, while he tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Finally, he rose, took my hand, and stepped outside the grand hall. Under the eaves, He held my hand as he coldly watched the weakened Yunju in the rain. Go back. Don't disturb the emperor and empress's peaceful slumber. As his words fell, Yunju bit her lower lip. Her face twisted with grievance. Her gaze toward me was filled with venom and complexity. I dutifully held the umbrella for him, gently urging him back inside. As we left, I turned to flash Yunju a defiant smile. Ugh. What a pain. Played the love torture tool again. Compared to the tangled web of love and hate in the harem, the imperial court over the past few months had been turned upside down. Xiao Yu had been recuperating for a long time. Yet his spirits grew increasingly low, and his health showed no signs of improvement, compounded by the rampant rumors that the ruler of the nation would remain childless forever. Unrest stirred among the imperial clan. Outside the palace halls, veteran ministers knelt in protest, pleading for His Majesty to issue an edict selecting an heir from the imperial lineage. Xiao Yu angrily smashed the teacups and memorials scattered across the table. These old fools. Every last one a fickle reed. Are they waiting for my death? His roar was cut short as rage overwhelmed him, triggering a violent coughing fit. At such a moment, I naturally avoided drawing attention to myself. I calmly prepared his medicine outside, waiting until his fit subsided before entering with measured steps. Empress, he demanded. What should I do? They've all betrayed me. My brothers, my uncles, not a single one is loyal. Seeing I have no heir, they all scheme to place their own sons on the throne. Traitors! Rebels! I'll have them all executed. Seeing me. He clung to me as if I were a lifeline. Your Majesty is wise and valiant, the answer already lies within you. Does it not? I gently blew on the medicine, my voice soft. Choosing a prince from the imperial clan to succeed you may be a lesser strategy, but it is the only way to calm the people's hearts now. Every member of the imperial family harbors this hope because, before the situation is settled, anyone might seize the opportunity. Once a decision is made, their hearts will settle too. As for who to choose, that rests entirely in your Majesty's hands. Whether it be the Crown Prince of Yong or the Crown Prince of Ding, both are over 10 years old and their fathers are still alive. This will inevitably lead to trouble in the future. His eyes flickered, as if deep in thought. I continued, if we select a young child whose father passed away early, and raise him within the palace walls, what difference would there be from His Majesty's own flesh and blood? He remained silent, saying nothing. I knew he had heard me. A month later, Xiao Yu issued an edict. The posthumous son of the late Prince of Pingshan was chosen as heir and proclaimed crown prince. That child was but 4 years old. Shortly after the young prince entered the palace, he fell into the water and fell gravely ill, and someone saw Yunshu by his side at that time. Following palace regulations, I had Yunshu subjected to 20 strokes of the court cane. She wailed in agony as she was beaten. I sat in the courtyard drinking tea, and casually sent someone to summon Xiao Yu. Sure enough, Xiao Yu was furious. Empress, what are you doing? He rushed over, embraced her, and cried urgently. Summoned the imperial physician. As he carried her away, he bumped into me without a second thought. I sighed wearily. It seems only through the meddling of a wicked woman like me can their endless drama of separation and reunion continue. I squeezed out a few tears and wept in repentance at Yunju's bedside. The physician declared her injuries severe, advising convalescence outside the palace. A medicinal hot spring bath would greatly benefit her recovery. Without hesitation, Xiao Yu commanded, issue the decree. Depart for the Songshan Imperial Villa tomorrow. Before leaving, he shot me a fierce glare. The Empress need not accompany me. Remain in the palace and reflect on your actions. Oh, I couldn't ask for more. Once you leave, you may never return. By now, the rebel forces in the south had likely already risen. I ordered word of His Majesty's departure from the capital to be spread far and wide, directing the rebels straight towards Songshan. On the 8th day of the 12th lunar month, as storms raged over the capital, the emperor found himself besieged by rebels at Songshan. He dispatched envoys seeking aid from neighboring states. Yet not a single soldier came to his rescue. As for the imperial garrison forces, faced with the choice between saving His Majesty and protecting the throne, the ministers all fell silent, with the empire teetering on collapse. I entered the hall of imperial administration with the young prince. His Majesty must be saved. But the capital is the nation's foundation, it cannot be lost. The only hope now lies in summoning the Yin family's army from Yunzhou to march south and aid the throne. At these words, the ministers seemed to swallow a reassuring pill. They prostrated themselves in unison, chanting in unison, "Your Highness, you are wise." On the first day of the first lunar month, gloom hung thick over the city. Save for a handful of households that had hung door gods, not a trace of New Year's joy could be seen. News arrived from Songshan. The Yin family army had won a great victory, crushing most of the rebel forces who fled in disarray. But tragically, His Majesty had been struck by multiple arrows, and his condition was beyond saving. I issued an edict ordering the entire city to wear mourning attire and prepare for the emperor's funeral. Simultaneously, I commanded the Capital Patrol Corps to enter the city and guard all palace gates. With Yin's forces outside and the patrol corps within, layered defenses ensured the smooth enthronement of the young prince. I naturally became Empress Dowager, ruling with benevolent oversight. Before Li left the palace, she scrutinized my dowager attire with disdain for half a day. "Didn't you covet the throne? Why go to such lengths just to become Empress Dowager?" I smiled. "The time is not yet ripe. As for you, after our parting today, the road ahead stretches long and distant. We may never meet again. Take good care of yourself." Her smile was unrestrained and carefree, just like the spirited vigor she had when galloping down the streets years ago. "Rest assured, if you truly ascend that throne, I'll return to serve as your general. It's a deal." After court, I descended the stone steps to the prison cell where two figures, their faces now indistinct, were held captive. It was Xiao Yu and Yunzhu. "On Ning, quickly rescue me. These traitorous ministers dare imprison me here." I smiled faintly, my crimson lips parting. "Your Majesty, I come to offer congratulations. The Crown Prince has ascended the throne. He will grant your Majesty a grand funeral and posthumous title, the Foolish." "What?" He lunged forward in disbelief, chains clanging against the bars. "This is all you're doing? You orchestrated this?" I sighed deeply. "Your Majesty always claimed I understood you best. Yet you never understood me. I orchestrated such a grand scheme, and you remained utterly oblivious. Truly, utterly tedious." As if recalling something, I continued calmly under his furious gaze. "Oh, your Majesty needn't worry about the ladies of the harem. They're all doing splendidly. Consort Xin married the newly crowned third-place scholar. Their interests align perfectly, they harmonize like Qin and Se. Lin Mei has returned to Jiangnan to inherit her father's business. And for some reason, the young master of the Han family has followed her there. As for Consort Han, after leaving the palace, she's been traveling the world with her beloved, writing travelogues." As I spoke, I bowed my head slightly, drawing closer, my voice still soft and gentle. "Your Majesty, rest assured, for the sake of our marriage, this servant will safeguard your empire. After all, the imperial throne belongs to the capable." His eyes bulged, bloodshot as if ready to spill. "So you intend to usurp the throne? You venomous woman. Through past lives and this one, I've grown weary of hearing the words venomous woman. He was the one who slaughtered loyal ministers and concubines, who harmed innocent people. How did I become the venomous one?" I couldn't be bothered to argue. My gaze swept over Yunzhu, cowering in the corner tower. "Since you two are so devoted, you may remain here together for the rest of your days. Your Majesty, I hope you live long enough. On the day I ascend the throne, I shall invite you both to share a cup of celebratory wine. I walked cheerfully out of the prison cell, leaving behind the sound of Xiaoyu banging against the bars and his vicious curses. 2 years later, the young emperor issued an edict abdicating the throne. By then, all 6 ministries were filled with my trusted confidants. Supported by the ministers, I was welcomed as the new emperor. On the day of the coronation ceremony, I saw Ainli below the city gate, clad in red, spear in hand, riding a horse. I extended my hand, welcome back, my general of the state. The end.